He spots a high-voltage box, a desperate idea forming in his mind. He understands that getting caught is not an option. His pursuers grab him, their faces contorted with effort. He knows that if they succeed, it is all over. With grim determination, he connects the live electrical cables. He would rather face oblivion. A massive electrical discharge engulfs all three of them, a choice he made to die rather than be captured. However, his survival is assured by the heart of resurrection beating within him. His body, a charred skeleton, stands defiantly, confirming that he will not perish. The narration explains that in this world, many different kinds of special hearts exist. These mutations are rare, occurring in only a tiny fraction of the population. Depending on the heart, individuals can manifest transcendent abilities. These superhumans became known as heart mutants. This power was envied by many, who considered it a divine blessing. But for him, the word blessing is laughable. He knows this very heart is the source of all his misery. His immediate concern, however, is a hunger so intense it borders on madness. He then spots it, a piece of bread recently discarded. Finding it still edible, he wastes no time devouring it. But his meal is interrupted by a curious dog. He offers the last of his food to the dog, asking if it is also hungry. The dog licks his skeletal hand, and he quietly praises the animal. He then hears voices in the distance as more stray dogs gather around him. He quickly hides, wondering if his pursuers from the lab have finally found him. But instead, he sees a group of thugs cornering a young high school student. He realizes they are not from the lab, just some local delinquents. The girl pleads with them, but her words only seem to annoy her harassers. His gaze then falls upon the bag she's carrying, realizing it's dog food. A shadowy figure steps into the alley, getting the group's attention. He calmly asks them to stop, leaving the thugs to wonder who this strange hobo is. He corrects the thug, clarifying that he is not a hobo. The thug recoils in absolute shock. One of his friends swings a bat, but the weapon shatters against his arm as he calmly tells them to leave. Terrified, the delinquents scramble away, screaming that he must be a ghost. The high school student, now safe on the ground, stammers out her gratitude. But he turns on her with a terrifying intensity, pointing directly at her. She screams in terror, pleading for him to stay away. He ignores her fear, his entire focus now on the bag of dog food. Her terror turns to confusion. She finally understands his true intention was the bag of dog food. He apologizes for scaring her, then politely asks if he could have some. The sound of his voice sends her running in terror. He watches her go, unsurprised by her reaction. He then turns his attention back to the food, glad to finally eat in peace. From a safe distance, the girl peeks around the corner, still trembling. She watches him with the dogs, wondering if a creature in that state could even be alive. Then a thought strikes her, he might be a heart mutant. Realizing the person who saved her has special abilities, she feels a wave of guilt for her behavior. She steps back into the alley and he looks up. Overcoming her fear, she offers him a sandwich, asking if he is hungry. He stares in disbelief, questioning if the offer is truly for him. She apologizes for her earlier reaction as he gratefully accepts the food. He reflects that this is the first time someone has offered him food in his current state. He takes a massive bite, having only ever seen the wrappers for such a meal in the trash. The flavor is an overwhelming, heavenly experience. He marvels at the freshness of the ingredients, a taste he feels is worth dying for. Looking over at the girl petting the dogs, he decides she must be an angel. She then asks him what she should call him. After a moment of thought, he reveals his name, Kim Jae-oh. She smiles warmly and introduces herself as Song Hae-jae. She then asks why he is out here, and he explains he is hiding from people from a lab. Hae-jae is visibly shaken by this revelation. He elaborates, telling her about a research facility that captures heart mutants and is trying to take him back. Having heard rumors of such places, she nervously asks what they did to him. Jae-oh hesitates for a moment. He then reveals the horrific truth. For 10 years, he was subjected to endless experiments and torture, from being fed poison to having his organs harvested. The sheer horror of his decade-long ordeal leaves her trembling in disbelief. He explains this was all possible because of his heart of resurrection, an ability that regenerates his body from any injury. It is because of this endless cycle, he concludes, that he ended up in his current hideous state. Jae-oh seems flustered by her compassion. Hae-jae then insists that for now he must come with her. She grabs his arm and pulls him along, telling him it will be quick. Jae-oh is stunned by the sudden contact. He can't believe that a girl is holding his hand, despite his appearance. He becomes incredibly bashful, thinking that if she pulls so suddenly, his hand pops right off his arm. Hae-jae lets out a blood-curdling scream, left holding the dismembered limb. He calmly reassures her, explaining that his hand falls off sometimes. Jae-oh explains that it will reattach easily, much to her terrified relief. He finds himself wearing a brand new set of clothes. Hae-jae explains that his old clothes were too worn out and conspicuous. She admits they are inexpensive but hopes they will suffice for now. Jae-oh is overwhelmed, stammering that the clothes are wonderful. He revels in the snug warmth, a sensation he hasn't felt in years, declaring them the best clothes ever. But Haijai stops him, telling him they are not finished yet. She points out that his face is still exposed, and since he has no ears for a mask, she will cover it with makeup. With a flourish, she reveals her handiwork. She apologizes for her clumsy first attempt at skull makeup, but Jae-oh insists he loves it. She peeks through her fingers, hoping that this disguise will be enough to keep the lab from recognizing him. Haijai suddenly checks her phone, realizing she is late for her academy. She quickly says her goodbyes and rushes off. As she runs, she asks him to take care of the puppies for her. He thinks about the girl who just left. Her name is Song Haijai. As the dogs swarm him, he realizes her request implies she will return tomorrow. He recalls his time in the lab, where he was treated only as a test subject. And since escaping, everyone he met fled from him in fear. But Haijai was the first person to treat him like a human. He pets the first dog he met, silently thanking it for leading him to this encounter. He wonders what he should name his new canine friend. He suggests the name Gamja, which the dog happily accepts. He then thinks back to the sandwich, marveling at how delicious it was. Recalling how Haijai bought him clothes and treated him with kindness, he concludes she must be an angel. The thought of seeing her again tomorrow fills him with a newfound hope. He sits contentedly in the alley, surrounded by the stray dogs. But a sudden, terrible realization shatters his peace. He remembers that he is being hunted, and his presence could put his new friend in danger. With a heavy heart, he decides he must leave. He walks away into the night, resolved to go where he can no longer endanger the kind girl who helped him. He finds refuge in a desolate drainage tunnel on the outskirts of the city. Exhausted from his journey, he eventually collapses on the cold concrete. He jolts awake, startled by a mouse crawling over him. He realizes he passed out from walking aimlessly and shouldn't just sleep anywhere. But a more pressing issue arises as hunger gnaws at him once more. He's relieved to find he still has a small amount of the dog food left. To make it more bearable, he tries to imagine the delicious sandwich Haijai gave him. He chews the kibble, convincing himself that it tastes just like the real thing. But his meal is suddenly interrupted. A stray dog appears and begins eating his precious sandwich. He panics, yelling at the dog not to eat his precious food. But he stops short, recognizing the dog as his friend Gamja. He wonders how the dog could have possibly found him. A sudden, hopeful realization dawns on him. A familiar voice calls out his name. It's Haijai, who tearfully asks why he left without saying goodbye. Surrounded by the dogs, she explains she almost couldn't find him, and he feels a joy his skeletal face cannot show. She reveals that she searched all day, finally tracking him down with the help of the dog's keen sense of smell. As he apologizes, she gently scolds him, reminding him of the danger he's in. He looks down, explaining that he left because he was afraid of becoming a burden to her. She smiles, expressing her immense relief at having found him. She points out that even Gamja was worried, as the dog affectionately licks his face. She then reveals a spread of food, announcing that it is time to eat. Explaining that he must be starving, she pulls various snacks from her backpack that she bought at a convenience store. She prepares a special treat for him, pouring fresh milk over a tray of cookies. Handing it to the stunned Jae-oh, she tells him it's a delicious combination. He holds the tray, still processing the sight of this new, incredible meal. The first bite is so overwhelmingly delicious that it brings tears to his eyes. He urges Haijai to try some, but she just laughs at his comical expression and offers him a soda. As he holds the drink, he looks down in shock to see his arm bone has completely regenerated. Haijai eagerly asks to see his newly regenerated arm. She watches as new flesh slowly knits itself over the bone. She wonders if the process will take several days to complete. He corrects her, revealing that a full recovery usually takes several years. He clarifies that this is only if he relies on eating food, prompting her to ask about other methods. He considers another, more gruesome method involving blood, but decides against frightening her with the details. He simply tells her that for now, eating well is enough. Haijai asks if the lab helped him recover, and he confirms they did, but only to continue their experiments on him. This, he explains, is why they continue to hunt him so relentlessly. A sudden understanding dawns on her face as she realizes why he left the alley without a word. He warns her that getting involved will put her in danger, telling her she no longer needs to be nice to him. But Haijai stands up, insisting they go to the police station right now. He explains that the last time he tried, he was treated like a monster and almost shot. She tells him not to worry, revealing that her older sister is a police officer. And more importantly, she explains that her sister is also a heart mutant. Jae-oh is stunned by this revelation, barely able to process the news. He remains hesitant. She pleads with him to trust her just this once, assuring him that her sister is a kind person. The scene transitions to a new day, where Haijai's sister leaves for work, telling them to have fun. She later stands beside Jae-oh, reassuring the dogs that they will be hearing from a shelter soon. Gamja sits patiently, drooling in anticipation. Jae pets the dog, thanking him for his help once again. He vows that this time he will not run away and will return for his friend. As they leave, Jae waves goodbye to the dogs, and Jae reflects on his situation. After 3 years of running, this is the first time someone has reached out to him. He finds the feeling strange, looking over at the girl who offered him help. Just as he wonders if he can finally stop running, a black van slams into him. The sudden impact catches him completely by surprise. Jae can only watch in absolute terror. His body is thrown violently into the air as the vehicle speeds away. He lies dazed on the pavement, the impact having disoriented him. Jae cries out his name, but a large man grabs her and covers her mouth. A group of men, some armed with bats, rush towards Jae's position. Before he can fully recover, 2 of them seize him. A man with a cigarette steps forward, announcing that he has finally found the skeleton. He orders his men to take Jae, promising to make him pay for his past actions. A convoy of black vans speeds away from the scene. Jae is tied by the neck and dragged behind one of the vehicles, along with other captives. He grits his teeth in frustration and agony. With shredded fingers, he claws at the asphalt, determined to stop them. He realizes with horror that this is all his fault. Because of him, Jae has now been captured as well. His hand finally gives way, shattering against the road. The sudden slack sends him flying through the air. He curses his own power, feeling completely useless in this moment. He silently begs for anyone to help. And then his plea is answered. The stray dogs led by Gamja have come to his rescue. They bite and pull, desperately trying to free him from his bonds. Their sudden appearance forces the lead vehicle to swerve violently. The dogs bark and growl ferociously, surrounding the captors. The man with the cigarette curses under his breath. His men wonder why the stray dogs have suddenly become so aggressive. Jae watches in horror as his canine friends are struck down. The thugs show no mercy, brutally beating the animals with their bats. He trembles with rage, realizing the dogs are fighting a battle that should be his. He knows he has to do something. He can't bear to watch them get hurt any longer. And then he remembers the other method of regeneration, blood. He decides to absorb the blood spilled on the asphalt, hoping it will be enough to restore some of his strength. He desperately crawls towards the pool of blood on the asphalt. He prays for even a small recovery, but then he sees Gamja's motionless body. He recognizes his friend, lying still in a pool of his own blood. He sees the bodies of all the other dogs, brutally beaten to death by the thugs. The sight triggers a memory of his 10 years of suffering. For a decade, he was trapped in a laboratory, where every day was a cycle of endless torture. They subjected him to horrific experiments, injecting him with blood and harvesting his organs. The same agonizing routine repeated day after day. His power of resurrection meant he couldn't die, even when he wanted to. He eventually planned an escape, and by some miracle he managed to break free from the facility. He had believed that once he was free, he would finally be happy. But contrary to his expectations, the people of the outside world despised him. To them, he was nothing more than a monster. Until he met the dogs in Jae. They were the first to treat him like a human being. As this memory fills him, the blood on the asphalt begins to stir. It surges towards his body, drawn by his very will. He absorbs the life force of his fallen friends. The crimson liquid swirls into a violent vortex, and from it a new hand begins to form, clenching into a fist. The blood envelops his skeletal frame, rapidly reconstructing his body. His face reforms, his eyes glowing with a crimson light. In an instant, Jae stands fully restored, his physique returned to its peak. He looks down at his hand, marveling at the return of his body. He realizes it has been completely regenerated. It feels just like when he was young in the lab, when the constant circulation of blood kept him at his strongest. But a horrifying thought crosses his mind. He understands that it was the dog's blood that triggered this complete recovery. The thugs stare in disbelief, wondering how he could have possibly regenerated so quickly. Their leader simply orders them to capture him again, and one of them charges forward with a bat. But before the thug can even swing, Jae's fist connects with his face. The blow sends the man flying backward with incredible force. His body slams directly into the side of the black van. The impact leaves him embedded in the vehicle's crumpled door. Jae then kneels, cradling Gamja's lifeless body in his arms. He quietly informs the remaining thugs that he knows the most painful way to die. He offers a single chance for survival to whoever answers his question first. With cold fury in his eyes, he demands to know where they have taken Jae. The scene then shifts to a secluded compound where the convoy has arrived. Inside, a bag is forced over Jae's head. She demands to know who these people are. She finds herself surrounded by a group of menacing thugs. She frantically tries to understand where she has been taken. Her gaze then falls upon a horrific scene of men dismembering bodies. A hand grabs her by the hair as a thug complains about the noise. The leader crouches down, mockingly asking if she has extra lives to spare. He tells her not to blame them, but to blame the skeleton freak she helped. He warns her to stay quiet if she values her life. He coldly states that no one there cares if a few people die. He then takes a phone call, asking the person on the other end why they have not returned yet. The man on the phone demands to know the skeleton's whereabouts, questioning what happened with the dogs. His subordinate stammers that the skeleton has somehow turned back into a human. The leader grows impatient, demanding a clear explanation for what happened. Haijai overhears, realizing with dawning hope that the dogs must have come to help. The leader confirms his worst fear, asking if his men have lost their target. He explodes in fury, screaming at his subordinate about how much Jai-O is worth. Smashing his phone, he threatens his men with death if they fail to bring Jai-O back. His rage now turns to Haijai, grabbing her and demanding to know where the skeleton went. He screams in her face, his anger fueled by the thought of losing so much money. Terrified, she insists she doesn't know, but he refuses to believe her. He threatens to give her a few extra holes to jog her memory. She remembers Jai-O's warning, realizing how foolish she has been. Overwhelmed with terror, she wonders what she can possibly do. He yanks her up by the hair, pressing the cold blade against her. But his interrogation is cut short as one of his men is sent flying. The other thugs turn in alarm, reacting to the sudden intrusion. A lone figure stands silhouetted in the brightly lit doorway. The men wonder who this mysterious person could be. One of the thugs approaches, dismissing the stranger as a homeless beggar. But his taunts are cut short as a hand seizes him by the throat. The thug chokes and sputters, unable to comprehend Jai-O's overwhelming strength. Jai-O stares down at him with cold, unforgiving eyes. He explains that because of their actions, all the dogs are now dead. The other thugs rush forward, ordered to kill the intruder. One of them lands a heavy punch across Jai-O's face. The blow connects with brutal force, but Jai-O doesn't even flinch, countering with a swift kick that sends his attacker flying. Another thug seizes the opportunity to grab him from behind. The others quickly swarm him, pulling him down by his hair. He looks up, his blood-splattered face twisted into a terrifying grin. With a single motion, he flips one of the thugs over his shoulder. The others stare in stunned silence. Jai-O looks down at the fallen men. He asks if they were sent by Hermes' lab. Haijai looks on in horror, but her attention is drawn to another figure, whose eyes glow with a menacing red light. The leader suddenly understands, exclaiming that this intruder is the skeleton they were hunting. He recalls being told that the target might be unrecognizable after regenerating. A gunshot rings out and Jai-O is struck in the back. The leader thanks him for walking right into their trap. The leader orders his men to bring out all the guns they acquired from a recent deal. His subordinates comply, immediately opening fire on Jai-O. They unload their clips, motivated by the immense profit his capture will bring. The thugs are ordered to shoot him until his regeneration ability gives out completely. The relentless barrage of bullets tears through his newly formed body. He looks up, the familiar sensation of agonizing pain washing over him. He can feel his flesh being ripped apart by the assault. His bones shatter under the force of the bullets. With his lungs torn, he can barely even draw a breath. Haijai screams in horror, begging them to stop. The leader scoffs, believing the stubborn mutant has finally gone down. But even as Jai-O lies still, a faint heartbeat echoes through the room. His fingers twitch, digging into the blood-soaked floor. His gaze falls upon the bodies of the men he has already dispatched. Deep within his chest, the heart of resurrection pulses with a brilliant light. One of the thugs cries out a warning to his boss. He points in terror as Jai-O's body begins to rise, defying death itself. The leader watches in disbelief, comparing the sight to a zombie rising from the grave. Blood tendrils whip through the air as Jai-O pushes himself to his feet. Enraged, the leader orders his men to stop watching and open fire once more. He feels every single bullet embedding itself in his body. The projectiles are not just piercing him, but shattering and tearing him apart. Yet his body keeps recovering, forcing him to endure the agony over and over. But he realizes the pain is not as severe as he expected. It is nothing compared to everything he has already endured. He recalls the endless cycle of being crushed. He concludes that the experiments and torture were far more painful. His fist connects with a thug's face. He moves with blinding speed, dispatching his attackers with brutal efficiency. He realizes that bullets like these are something he can endure as many times as they can fire. The thugs look on in disbelief, seeing him seemingly float. One of them rushes forward, throwing a punch, but Jai-O catches the fist with ease. He sends the man flying into the wall, his mind focused on what truly drives him to rage. He strikes another thug in the stomach. He unleashes a furious barrage of attacks, taking them down one by one. He remembers the dogs who protected him, and he vows that he will never forgive what was done to them. The leader grabs Haijai, using her as a human shield. He presses a gun to her head, threatening to shoot if Jai-O takes another step. But Jai-O moves in an instant, vowing to never again lose someone precious. His punch sends the leader flying backward, crashing into a massive metal tank. Jai-O stands over the wreckage, his back to the fallen man. The leader looks up in stunned disbelief. He crawls on the ground, desperately pleading for his life. But Jae-o informs him that it is far too late for mercy. He raises his leg, bringing it down with devastating force. The impact crushes the leader's face, ending his plea for good. He brings his foot down again and again. He unleashes a relentless flurry of stomps. The leader's face is left completely shattered. Blood drips from Jae-o's clenched fist. He stands over the man's broken body, his vengeance complete. The warehouse floor is now littered with the unconscious forms of his enemies. Hae-jae tentatively calls out to him. He slowly turns to face her. She nervously asks if he is all right, remembering how many times he was shot. Overwhelmed with relief, she rushes forward and embraces him. He clings to her, tears of relief and sorrow streaming down his face. She tells him she is just glad that he is alive. He explains with anguish that the puppies died trying to save him. But he confesses his greatest fear was that she might have died as well. Overwhelmed with emotion, he thanks her for being safe. She looks at him, confused by his gratitude. She holds him tighter, insisting that she is the one who should be thankful. Sometime later, the police arrive, and a detective orders his officers to take the suspects into custody. They assess the scene, mistakenly believing the carnage was the result of internal gang warfare. From a safe distance, they watch the police arrest the thugs, and Hae-jae wonders if they should be involved. Jae-o is told to stay back, as Hae-jae explains that a heart mutant's involvement would only complicate things. She assures him she will handle it, and they quietly slip away into the night. Later, Hae-jae finally breaks down, letting out a wail of anguish. Jae-o is also overcome with grief, burying his face in his hands. They have brought the fallen dogs to a quiet place, and he offers a tearful apology. Hae-jae mourns each of them by name, her voice choked with sorrow. She clutches one of the dogs, blaming herself for their sacrifice. She reflects that her small acts of kindness meant everything to them, enough to give their lives for her. But Jae-o cuts her off, insisting it is not her fault, for they died giving their blood to him. She looks at him in alarm, questioning his sudden, pained outburst. He remembers his ability to absorb blood and wonders if his own special blood could resurrect the dogs. He cuts his own finger. A single drop of his blood falls onto the dog's fur. But he curses in frustration as the wound heals almost instantly. In a desperate attempt, he bites down hard on his own hand. Hae-jae grabs him, pleading for him to stop, insisting this would only make the dogs sadder. He questions this, believing the dogs would only resent him for causing their deaths. She assures him they would never resent him because she knows how much they truly liked him. She explains that while the dogs kept their distance from most people, they had a special fondness for him. He quietly processes her words, stunned by the revelation. She explains that the dogs were covered in scars from past abuse, which made them wary of humans. He looks at Gamja's body, realizing he never knew of their painful past. She tells him that hurting himself will only bring their spirits more pain. He quietly holds one of his fallen friends. She points out that the dogs approached him without any fear, because they sensed he had suffered just as they had. He sits in silence for a moment before offering her his gratitude. Their somber moment is suddenly interrupted. Hae-jae recognizes it as Gamja's puppy, overjoyed that it is alive. The small dog wags its tail, walking directly towards a stunned Jae-o. Hae-jae points out that the puppy is looking right at him. He asks the small animal if it doesn't hate him, reminding it that he is the reason its family is gone. But instead of fear, the puppy licks his hand affectionately. Hae-jae notes that this little one seems to like him too. The small creature, exhausted from the ordeal, quickly falls asleep in his arms. Hae-jae wonders what to do, realizing she can't just leave the newborn puppy behind. But her thoughts then turn to Jae-o, knowing the men hunting him are far more dangerous than common criminals. She tells him to wait for a moment and quickly runs off to call her sister. He watches as she explains the situation over the phone, getting instructions from her sister. With a new plan in place, the three of them prepare to face what comes next. They arrive at an apartment building under the night sky. He stares into the apartment, a place Hae-jae calls a home. He hesitates, questioning if someone as dangerous as him should even enter. But she dismisses his fear, reminding him that he risked his life to save her. She then adds that her sister wants to meet him, believing she can help with the lab situation. He nervously considers her persistent invitation. He then catches his reflection in a nearby mirror, looking confused. He suddenly lunges at the mirror, startling Hae-jae. He grabs her, frantically pointing out that his face has completely regenerated. He explains that he had no idea, as his face hadn't fully regenerated since he was a child due to the lab's constant experiments. He stares at his reflection, finally seeing what he truly looks like. Hae-jae takes a drink, admitting that something has been bothering her. She points out that he no longer looks like a middle-aged man and asks for his real age. Jae-o considers the question, realizing it has been a long time since he last thought about it. He calculates his age based on his time in the lab and the seasons that have passed since his escape. Hae-jae spits out her water in shock, learning he is only 17 years old. She exclaims that they are the same age and asks why he let her call him Mr. He shyly admits that he simply liked being addressed like a person. Haijai is flustered, finding his honest answer both sad and endearing. She suggests they drop the formalities and tells him to wash up before they eat. The puppy eagerly devours its own bowl of food. Jae-oh eats with equal fervor, declaring the warm meal to be incredibly delicious. Haijai humbly apologizes, explaining that she is not a good cook. But Jae-oh insists it is the best food he has eaten in years. She then informs him that her sister had to cancel their meeting, likely due to work. She offers him the couch for the night, much to his surprise. He insists the floor is fine, but she hands him a blanket for the couch. She then excuses herself to her room to do homework, wishing him a good night. He stands alone in the quiet living room, holding the blanket. He cautiously takes in his new, unfamiliar surroundings. He marvels at the large, thin television. He notices a pot of flowers, a sight completely alien compared to the sterile lab. He sinks into the couch, discovering a level of comfort he has never known. But his moment of peace is interrupted as the puppy suddenly spits out its food. Jae-oh turns in alarm. The small animal seems to be choking on its meal. He cries out in panic for the little guy. He rushes to its side. He gently pats its back, trying to dislodge whatever is stuck. But the puppy just looks up at him, perfectly fine and slightly confused. He quickly dismisses his panic, relieved that the puppy is fine. He settles onto the couch for the night, accompanied by his new friend. He revels in the warmth and softness, a comfort he has never known. He asks the small puppy if it enjoys this new comfort as well. He then decides the little one needs a name, something to honor its father, Gamja. He settles on the name Twijum, which the puppy happily accepts. As Twijum sleeps, Jae-oh finally understands what it feels like to be happy. He reflects on the simple joys he has experienced, a delicious meal, the overwhelming warmth of a hot bath, and the simple act of washing up, a luxury he had long forgotten, and the simple comfort of sleeping in a soft bed. But he knows that these simple joys are things that can be easily lost. His thoughts drift back to the lab, to a day of chaos and escape. He remembers the other test subjects, all desperately fleeing towards the exit. But their escape was cut short by heavily armed soldiers, ordered not to let any of the high-class heart mutants get away. The soldiers opened fire, their attack tearing through the fleeing captives. Many were cut down, their bodies left broken on the cold floor. One of the soldiers takes aim, but he is suddenly engulfed in a blast of fire. Another mutant retaliates, unleashing a powerful wave of ice. A voice from his past calls out, telling him to snap out of his daze. Another test subject struggles to hold up a collapsing structure, clearing a path. A female mutant points the way, urging them to hurry towards the exit. Jae-oh takes his friend's hand and is pulled to his feet. He recalls the immense difficulty of their escape from the facility, but he remembers that they were separated at the very end. Lying in bed, he worries that his friends might still be suffering somewhere. He reaches for Twijum, vowing to never let his newfound peace be taken away. He will protect this small bit of happiness at all costs. His heart pulses, ready to destroy anyone who dares to interfere. He vows that no matter who it is, he will not let them get away with it. The next morning, Haijai announces that she is heading to school, a concept Jae-oh finds unfamiliar. She tells him to watch the house, explaining that her sister will be back in the evening due to a heavy workload. As she waves goodbye, he wistfully considers that school must be fun. But before she can leave, Twijum begins to whine and scratch at the door. She turns back, asking the small puppy what is wrong. They both watch the animal, and Haijai wonders if it wants to go outside with her. Jae-oh considers taking it for a quick walk, even though she needs to get to school. Haijai expresses her concern, worried they might be chased by dangerous people again. But Jae-oh confidently reassures her, certain that no one will recognize him now that he has regenerated. Haijai expresses her relief at his confidence. She tells him he must use a leash for the walk, pointing to a drawer before rushing off to school. Outside, Jae-oh clumsily tries to put the leash on the energetic puppy. Twijum gets tangled and cries out, causing Jae-oh to panic. He worries that he has tied the leash too tightly, causing the small animal pain. The sight triggers a dark memory, as he recalls a time when he was also restrained by a leash. He remembers being strapped to a chair, where any movement sent agonizing electricity through his entire body. Despite the trauma, he resolves to continue, believing the leash is necessary to protect Twijum from others. He asks for the puppy's forgiveness, but then notices the leash has fallen to the ground. He stares in utter shock, realizing the tiny puppy somehow knows how to escape. He screams Twijum's name, sprinting down the street in a panic. With tears streaming down his face, he desperately calls out, asking where the puppy has gone. The small dog, however, is simply enjoying its newfound freedom. Jae-oh continues his frantic search, pleading for Twijum to answer him. He checks inside a large trash can, hoping to find his friend. He then looks under a nearby car, his search growing more desperate. Exhausted, he slumps over a garbage bin, wondering where else to look. He sinks to the ground, his mind racing with terrible possibilities. He imagines the puppy getting hit by a car or being hurt by cruel people. He clutches his head in despair, recalling his promise to protect Twidgem, a promise he has already broken. He stops looking through an alleyway. He realizes he's at a school and spots Twidgem watching the students play. He cries out Twidgem's name, relieved to have finally found him. He sprints towards the puppy, wondering if it followed Haijai's scent all the way here. But his path is suddenly blocked by a stern-looking man in a tracksuit. Jaio tries to run past him, but the man attempts to stop him. He's left stunned by Jaio's incredible speed, recalling a warning from someone named Mr. Lei. The man yells for him to wait, but Jaio is already a blur of motion. On the field, the students continue their game, completely unaware. It's a scene of ordinary school life, with students scattered across the grounds. Peeking from behind a tree, he observes what a school is for the first time. Nearby, a group of students discuss rumors about heart mutants originating from a lab. Another student watches a video detailing the massive reward for reporting an unregistered mutant. He overhears them fantasizing about the money, realizing this is how the outside world views people like him. Knowing he must be careful, his priority becomes finding Twidgem and leaving immediately. Just then, he spots the small puppy running happily across the school grounds. Elsewhere on campus, a group of girls review a video of their dance challenge. Her friends praise her, commenting on how gorgeous she is. The girl, Minjiang, dismisses their compliments with a confident smile. Their conversation is interrupted as Twidgem suddenly runs up to them, catching their attention. Minjiang immediately scoops up the puppy, overwhelmed by its cuteness. Her friend suggests they take a photo with the puppy for their social media. But as they pose, Jaio's face suddenly appears in the camera's frame. The girls recoil in shock, accusing him of being a stalker. He quickly apologizes, trying to de-escalate the situation. He explains that he was only trying to retrieve his puppy, Twidgem. But their fear quickly turns to surprise as they get a better look at him. They notice his uniform and speculate that he must be a new transfer student. He asks if he is being filmed, and one of the girls invites him to join their video. Despite her friend's warning, she insists, but Jaio firmly refuses, knowing he cannot risk being filmed. She holds out her phone, asking for his social media handle. She offers to tag him in the photo she plans to post with the puppy. Her friends whisper in shock, realizing Minjiang has never asked for a guy's information before. Jaio is completely baffled, having no idea what she is talking about. Minjiang finds his shyness cute, but grows impatient with his hesitation. He turns away, explaining that he doesn't have an account. He then bows politely, firmly declining her offer. Her friends are left speechless, unable to believe Minjiang was just rejected. Minjiang's expression twists into a furious scowl, convinced he is just playing hard to get. He calmly takes Twidgem from her arms, explaining that the dog is his. He apologizes to Twidgem, promising to never lose him again, as Minjiang glares at him in silent fury. Nearby, a red-haired student trembles with rage. Minjiang demands to know who this new guy is. His friends point out that the stranger is talking to their friend Tagu's crush. Another student observes from a distance, assuming Jaio is using the dog to hit on Minjiang. Tagu seethes, enraged that someone would dare make a move on Minjiang right in front of him. He demands his friend toss him the soccer ball. His friend tries to warn him about his dangerous kicks, but Tagu unleashes a powerful strike. The ball deforms under the immense force of the kick. He declares that the consequences are not his problem as the ball rockets across the field. He registers the incoming projectile. His eyes widen in alarm. He instinctively shields the small puppy. The ball smashes directly into his head with tremendous force. A concerned student rushes over, asking if he is okay. But she cries out in alarm as blood drips onto the pavement. Tagu runs over, feigning an apology and claiming the ball slipped. He mockingly asks if the new student is hurt, calling it a total accident. Jaio tells him to watch where he is kicking. With a cold glare, he explains that his dog was almost hurt and demands a proper apology. Tagu bursts into laughter, mocking Jaio's injury. But he quickly remembers that Minjiang is watching. His friends suggest Jaio visit the nurse's office, recalling the last time Tagu's kick broke someone's nose. Jaio calmly states that he is fine, but warns Tagu to be more careful for Twidgem's sake. He accepts the half-hearted apology, insisting he is all right. He then turns to leave with Twidgem, as Tagu silences his friend's commentary. Enraged, Tagu orders his friend to find out who the stranger is, disliking his defiant attitude. As he walks away, Jaio reflects on the panic he felt, terrified of losing Twidgem. But he realizes that because of the puppy, he was able to see a school and meet people his own age. For the first time, he wonders if this is what it feels like to have fun, and if he could have made friends here. But a voice calls out, addressing him as a friend. Tagu suddenly slings an arm around his shoulder, offering an insincere apology. He suggests that since they are in the same grade, they should be friends. To make up for the incident, he offers to treat Jaio to some bread. The simple offer sends Jayo's mind reeling, the thought of such a treat overwhelming him. He hesitantly asks if the offer is real, and Tagu confirms, leading him away. Jayo then asks if there will be food for Twijum, and Tagu promises to buy everything. Tagu explains he was just showing off and will make it up to him with plenty of bread. But his friendly demeanor was nothing more than a ruse. He suddenly lands a vicious kick to Jayo's stomach. Tagu's friends laugh, finding it unbelievable that Jayo actually followed them. They mock his naivety, questioning if he is slow in the head for believing their offer of bread. Tagu promises to feed him until he is full. He clarifies his offer, a knuckle sandwich, as Jayo lies on the ground surrounded by the gang. Tagu looms over him, calling him a pathetic loser. He grabs Jayo, aggressively demanding to know who he thinks he is. Jayo seems confused by the accusation, so Tagu clarifies, screaming about him hitting on Minjeong. He accuses Jayo of putting on a fake tough guy act, threatening to wreck him for real. His friends tell him to ease up, mocking Jayo's weak appearance as Tagu seethes with disgust. Jayo finally understands that he was not called out to make a friend, but to be the target of a fight. He apologizes, offering to leave if he is making them uncomfortable. But the others block his path, mocking his attempt to walk away. He tells them to move, explaining that Twijum is getting scared. One of the thugs lunges forward, insulting both him and the puppy. But Jayo's fist connects first, sending the bully flying backward. The thug lies unconscious on the ground as his friends stare in disbelief. Tagu questions what he just saw, unable to process the sudden turn of events. The remaining thugs surround Jayo, demanding to know what he did. He stands calmly, unfazed by their accusations. Deep inside him, the heart of resurrection pulses with power. He moves with blinding speed, neutralizing the remaining thugs in an instant. His fist connects with Tagu's jaw. He grabs the bully by the head, slamming him into the brick wall. The impact shatters the brickwork. Tagu's face contorts in pain and shock as the wall cracks behind him. Jayo calmly states that he told them to stop, explaining that Twijum was getting scared. The other students stare in utter disbelief, stammering about the broken wall. They recoil in terror, calling him a monster. Tagu looks back at the crater in the wall, unable to comprehend Jayo's inhuman strength. He realizes with dawning horror that if he is hit even once, his bones will surely break. Tagu realizes he has made a grave mistake. He drops to the ground, begging for forgiveness and promising to never do it again. He desperately tries to shift the blame, showing a picture of his own dog to prove he's an animal lover. Jayo considers this, wondering if Tagu might not be a completely terrible person after all. The bully continues his desperate play, but Jayo is suddenly struck by a pang of hunger, realizing he hasn't eaten all day. Tagu is baffled by this sudden change of topic. He misinterprets the comment, believing Jayo is slyly demanding food as compensation. He leads Jayo to the school store. Jayo eagerly prepares to eat the mountain of snacks, as a nervous Tagu tells him to enjoy the meal. Tagu watches him from a distance, completely bewildered. Jayo marvels at the taste of the strawberry bread, sharing a piece with Twijum. Tagu struggles to understand him, noting the strange contrast between his immense strength and his dorky behavior. He recalls the single punch that sent a man flying through the air. He then remembers the cracked wall, something even a professional fighter could not do. Deciding he needs to take special measures, he makes a call for backup. The man on the other end, Na Youngchul, answers the call from a high-stakes poker game. Tagu desperately pleads for help, admitting he is in serious trouble. Youngchul scoffs at the idea that Tagu was beaten by a random punk, questioning why he should help for free. Tagu insists this person is different, begging Youngchul to help him save face just this once. The man on the phone, Youngchul, relays that a junior named Tagu needs help with a skilled fighter. He scoffs at the idea but out of boredom agrees to swing by, calling the boy a dimwit. Tagu is overjoyed as Youngchul agrees, telling him to bring the target out. With a sinister grin, Tagu declares that the transfer student is now dead. Back in the store, Jayo offers some of his bread to Tagu. Tagu is taken aback as Jayo explains he felt bad eating by himself. He nervously insists that Jayo can have all the food and drinks. Tagu watches in disbelief as Jayo shares his food with Twijum, unable to reconcile his strength with his gentle nature. But as he feeds the small puppy, something catches his attention. He examines his hand, realizing that the pain from punching the wall has completely vanished. Tagu connects the dots, realizing Jayo possesses both incredible strength and rapid healing. He recalls an article about heart mutants, whose rare abilities vary depending on their heart. He confronts Jayo directly, asking if he is a heart mutant as Twijum comically spits out his drink. Jayo's frantic and unconvincing denial only serves to confirm Tagu's suspicions. One of Tagu's friends watches in disbelief, noting he has never seen a mutant in person before. He then realizes the immense danger they are in. Elsewhere, Youngchul slams the poker table, reacting to the news over the phone. He confirms with Tagu that the person he is with is truly a heart mutant. Tagu agrees, suggesting they should abandon the fight given how dangerous Jai-O is. But Youngchul declares this development is even better, ordering Tagu to keep him there until they arrive. Having finished his meal, Jai-O announces that he is ready to leave. Tagu panics, pointing out that lunch break is not yet over. But Jai-O simply smiles, explaining that he needs to head home. Remembering his orders to keep Jai-O there, Tagu scrambles for a plan. He desperately suggests they skip class and go hang out, a concept Jai-O finds completely foreign. He leads them to a local arcade. Jai-O is immediately captivated by the bright lights, and Tagu asks if this is his first time at an arcade. He sheepishly admits he never even knew places like this existed. He wanders through the rows of games, amazed by everything he sees. His attention is then drawn to a claw machine, where he recognizes the same keychain Hai-Jai has on her bag. Tagu watches him, wondering what kind of life Jai-O must have lived to be so naive. He offers to pay for a game, pushing a hesitant Jai-O towards the machine. After a quick lesson, Jai-O watches in amazement as the claw begins to move. The prize is successfully captured. He clutches the doll, overjoyed to have the same one as Hai-Jai. As Jai-O marvels at how fun the arcade is, Tagu smirks, confident he can stall until his backup arrives. He then points out the coin karaoke booths, another concept Jai-O has never heard of. Inside one of the small rooms, Tagu asks him to pick a song to sing. Jai-O shyly admits he doesn't know any, but Tagu encourages him to just sing anything. He begins to sing a simple children's song, leaving Tagu utterly baffled and annoyed by his pure boy act. He nervously asks if he chose the wrong song, explaining it is the only one he knows. He reveals his mother taught it to him before he was taken from his family at age 7. Tagu is taken aback by this sudden, tragic backstory. He struggles to understand Jai-O, wondering if all mutants are this strange. The story unexpectedly strikes a chord with the bully. He declares that if a normal life is impossible, then Jai-O must live an extraordinary one. With a new resolve, he drags Jai-O to a rhythm game, urging him to play with all his might. They move to another game, where Tagu accuses him of cheating. Jai-O completely loses his footing on the dance machine. Tagu mockingly asks if he is truly this bad at games, and Jai-O admits that it is difficult. Tagu is completely exhausted from their day of playing. He admits he has never had so much fun in his life, and Jai-O agrees that arcades are amazing. But his phone suddenly begins to vibrate in his pocket. He casually wonders who could be calling him at this time. The caller is Youngchul, who angrily demands to know why he is not answering. Tagu panics, realizing he completely forgot his mission to stall Jai-O because he was having too much fun. He looks at a photo strip they took together, calling himself an idiot for getting so carried away. Despite their friendly poses, his expression hardens with resolve. As Jai-O pets Twijum, Tagu notices several figures approaching from all sides. They are suddenly surrounded in an alleyway by Youngchul and his crew. Tagu suddenly bows, desperately apologizing and claiming he was mistaken about Jai-O being a mutant. Youngchul angrily asks if he is being messed with, as Tagu continues to plead for forgiveness. But Tagu is resolute, convinced that none of this is Jai-O's fault. He remembers Jai-O's tragic past and his claim that the puppy is his only family. The profound sadness of Jai-O's situation overwhelms him. He relates this to his own aging dog, understanding the fear of losing a cherished companion. The thought brings him to tears, and he admits he nearly killed his own friends for messing with his dog. He realizes his concern is for the puppy's fate if something were to happen to Jai-O. One of Youngchul's thugs swings a bat, aiming to punish Tagu for his defiance. But Tagu takes the blow, shielding Jai-O with his own body. Youngchul grabs Tagu by the hair, his voice dripping with menace. He asks if he looks like he is joking, demanding to know the mutant's location. The other thugs close in, questioning if Tagu is hard of hearing. Youngchul reminds him that their entire crew gathered just to catch this one person. Tagu desperately pleads, insisting it is all a misunderstanding. He explains that Jai-O is just an average loser, recalling how he collapsed from exhaustion at the arcade. He concludes that Jai-O is nothing more than a pathetic nerd, apologizing for bringing them out for nothing. Youngchul sighs in frustration, confirming that Tagu is claiming there is no mutant. He suddenly puts an arm around Tagu, asking if he is upset about being yelled at. But as he lights a cigarette, he reveals that he can always tell when the boy is lying. Youngchul demands to know why Tagu has suddenly changed his story. He reminds the boy that mutants are not human and that this is for their own safety. He then mockingly asks if Tagu was actually worried about them. Tagu stammers, unable to form a response. Youngchul then holds up 5 fingers, making a new offer. He proposes that Tagu can have 500 if he helps turn the mutant over to a special broker. Tagu is horrified, realizing this is human trafficking. He recalls seeing videos about kidnappings targeting heart mutants for research facilities. He trembles, never imagining the online rumors were true, let alone that his own crew was involved. He desperately tries to lie again, insisting that Jai-O is nothing special. But Youngchul has lost all patience, landing a vicious kick to Tagu's stomach. The force of the blow sends the boy flying backward into a pile of dumpsters. Tagu gasps in agony, struggling to draw a breath. Youngchul stands over him, stomping on his chest and declaring that his patience has run out. He orders the rest of his crew to beat the truth out of him. The thugs descend upon Tagu, unleashing a merciless barrage of kicks. As he's being beaten, the scene flashes back to a time when Tagu told his own friends to stop. He had pleaded with them to halt their assault on a younger student. It was then that Youngchul's crew had appeared, questioning their right to bully a first-year. Tagu's friends had immediately apologized and fled, leaving him to face the older gang by himself. Youngchul calls out to the cowering Tagu. He recalls their first meeting, when Youngchul introduced himself as a senior from the same gym, telling him not to get beaten up. In the present, the beating continues as Tagu reflects on how he once saw them as loyal and cool. He remembers wanting to be just like them, believing their violent lifestyle was admirable. Lying broken on the ground, Youngchul's crew wonders if he truly knows nothing, but their leader is certain he can spot the boy's lies. Youngchul crouches down, sarcastically commending Tagu's loyalty. He explains that loyalty means nothing when your own body is on the line, especially for such a small payout. He then orders his men to bring the chains, reminding Tagu of his desire to live a cool life. As a thug wraps a chain around his fist, Youngchul lectures that making real money is the only way to live without shame. With his own fists now wrapped in chains, he proposes that they can both live that cool life together. But Tagu apologizes, telling Youngchul that he looks incredibly uncool right now. The entire crew looks on as Tagu lies beaten on the ground. The boy immediately regrets his outburst. Youngchul's face contorts with rage, cursing Tagu for his insolence. Tagu panics, desperately trying to apologize and take back his words. But Youngchul simply tells him to die, swinging his chain-wrapped fist. The punch is suddenly stopped. Youngchul looks down, noting the rough, welded chain wrapped around his fist. Jae-oh calmly explains that a weapon like this would leave a lasting wound. The other thugs and Tagu stare in shock, wondering how he stopped the attack. Jae-oh explains that he came looking for Tagu, who was taking too long. Tagu urges him to run, confessing that he was the one who called these men. He admits to revealing Jae-oh's secret, prompting Jae-oh to ask why. Tagu explains it was out of anger for being hit, but Jae-oh dismisses his apology. He clarifies his question, asking why Tagu is allowing himself to be beaten with the chain. One of the thugs swings a bat down at his head. The others join the assault, striking him with their weapons. The blows land hard as Twijim barks furiously at the attackers. Tagu can only watch in horror, muttering in disbelief. The thug confirms Jae-oh is the heart mutant, mocking him for walking right into their trap. But his hand simply clenches on the ground. His fingers curl with tension. One of the thugs reels back in agony. In a flash, Jae-oh sweeps through their ranks, his movements a blur. The entire group is left scattered and unconscious on the pavement. Youngchul and his remaining man stare in disbelief. Jae-oh slowly rises to his feet. One of the thugs orders the others to kill him. The remaining men close in, instructed to beat him to death. They bring their weapons down on him in a single, brutal assault. One of the thugs leaps into the air, bringing his weapon down with full force. But Jae-oh moves first, striking two of them simultaneously. His fist connects with another's face. He follows with a swift kick, sending his opponent to the ground. Another attacker swings a bat from behind, but he effortlessly blocks the blow with his forearm. The thug is sent flying backward, crashing into a metal fence. The remaining men stare in disbelief, questioning if he is even human. Jae-oh calmly grabs another by the collar, his expression unreadable. One of the men pulls a knife, ordering the others to stab him. The man declares that even a monster is still human, plunging the knife deep into Jae-oh's side. He mockingly asks if the wound hurts. Jae-oh coughs, blood trickling from his lips. Enraged, the man stabs him again and again, screaming for the monster to die. But Jae-oh looks up calmly, telling him to stop. He effortlessly catches the blade with his bare hand. The thug stumbles back in terror, questioning what kind of creature can survive being stabbed. Jae-oh simply looks back at him. He states that the man doesn't need to know, before driving the knife into his attacker's shoulder. The remaining thugs realize their mistake, screaming that they should have never messed with a heart mutant as they flee in terror. In a blur of motion, he neutralizes the last of the fleeing thugs as Youngchul watches in disbelief. His eyes glow with a cold light as he explains that now they know what he is. None of them will be allowed to run. The remaining men are left unconscious, their faces contorted from the impacts. Jae-oh stands over the defeated gang, the alleyway littered with their bodies. Tagu calls out his name in a stunned whisper. He frantically asks if Jae-oh is okay, remembering the stab wound and offering to call for an ambulance. But Jae-oh calmly places a hand on his chest, insisting that he is fine. Tagu stares, pointing out that his wound is completely gone. Jae-oh simply offers an apology for the violent scene. But instead of showing any sympathy, Jayo begins hitting Tagu, scolding him for being an idiot and choosing his friends so poorly. He then stops, asking in disbelief if Tagu really tried to sell out a friend. Tagu apologizes, admitting that he sold Jayo out and used to hang out with those guys all the time. He confesses that he once thought their lifestyle was cool, but now realizes he is just as much of a thug as they are. Jayo simply holds out a folded white pad. He offers it to Tagu, pointing out that he has a nosebleed. Tagu looks up in confusion, asking if Jayo is really giving him something to wipe away the blood. He then realizes with disgust that he has been handed a puppy pee pad. Despite this, he uses it to clean his face, recalling Jayo's words about him not deserving to be called a friend. Jayo smiles, explaining that this means Tagu also thought of them as friends, and for him that is enough. Overwhelmed by this act of friendship, Tagu presses the pad to his face and begins to cry. He suddenly lunges forward, embracing Jayo in a tight hug. Surrounded by the unconscious thugs, he apologizes profusely, admitting that Jayo is a truly cool guy. The defeated gang leader, Tagu, pleads for mercy, claiming he has learned his lesson. He and his entire crew are subdued as he gives his word to keep the secret of the heart mutant safe. But his plea is met with pure rage. The red-haired brawler unleashes a vicious kick, berating Tagu for his arrogance. He yells to his companion Jayo that this man is nothing but a scumbag. The relentless assault continues as he mocks Tagu for being all talk. Watching the brutal display, Jayo quietly questions their supposed friendship. The brawler then turns to Jayo, asking whether they should beat the gang senseless or simply hand them over to the police. He is left speechless by Jayo's unseen response. Terrified, Tagu immediately begins to beg, promising his silence if they just avoid involving the authorities. A new voice calls out, asking for their attention. Two police officers arrive, explaining they're responding to a neighbor's report. The subdued gang members look on in horror. The brawler quickly approaches the officers, feigning relief at their arrival. He points to the gang, accusing them of being human traffickers. He insists that a search of their hideout will reveal all the necessary evidence. He demands their immediate arrest, calling them adult criminals as Tagu begins to panic. Suddenly, a piercing scream cuts through the air. Tagu is on the ground, thrashing and crying out for help. He claims to have broken bones and a stab wound, leaving the brawler to question his bizarre performance. Tagu seizes the opportunity, crying out to the officers that they are the victims of a brutal assault. The brawler is incensed by the blatant lie, questioning who really beat whom. Jayo quietly points out that the gang were the ones attempting to kidnap him. Tagu frantically points at the unscathed Jayo, insisting he's the real perpetrator who attacked them without provocation. The entire gang joins the performance, writhing in feigned agony as the brawler protests their deception. The officers attempt to de-escalate the situation, stating that everything will be sorted out at the station. But Tagu plays his trump card, pointing at Jayo and exposing him as a heart mutant. Jayo freezes in panic as the officer's demeanor shifts, one of them referencing a special act concerning mutants. They turn their full attention to Jayo, demanding his identification or registration number to verify his status. Jayo can only admit that he possesses no such documentation. The officers berate him, confirming that being an unregistered heart mutant is a direct violation of the Mutant Special Act. They inform Jayo that they will begin the registration process immediately, demanding he state his identity and ability. Jayo freezes, the words echoing in his mind. He remembers his past, a skeletal figure escaping a laboratory, and realizes that registration will expose him to his former captors. As an officer grabs his arm demanding cooperation, Jayo understands that they will track him down instantly. Suddenly, a young woman in a school uniform rushes onto the scene, telling everyone to hold on. She catches her breath, a nervous smile on her face as she greets them. The officers look on, confused by her sudden appearance. She holds out her phone, showing an incoming call from her sister, and begs one of them to take it. The officer reluctantly takes the phone, cautiously answering the call. On the other end of the line, a woman introduces herself as Superintendent Song Hye-in, the team leader of the Mutant Special Team. The officer snaps to attention in a panic salute, identifying himself as Officer Han Seok-jin. She clarifies that this is an attempted kidnapping of a heart mutant, ordering the kidnappers to be processed and the witness released. As team leader, she takes full responsibility, and the officer eagerly promises to follow her orders immediately. He turns to his colleagues, ordering them to arrest the thugs and let the others go. The gang is completely bewildered as they are apprehended, questioning why they are the only ones being taken. One of them struggles, demanding to know who on the phone had the authority to order their arrest. His eyes land on the schoolgirl, who gives a cheerful wave, leaving him to wonder about her identity. Jayo approaches the girl, now identified as Haijai, and asks how she knew to find him here. She explains that she saw him being surrounded by suspicious individuals on his way to school and decided to follow. Jayo questions if the brawler is one of the creeps, but Haijai clarifies she was talking about Tagu. Haijai is shocked by the brawler's bruised face, prompting Jayo to explain the earlier fight. The brawler is stunned, recognizing the girl as the renowned school goddess Song Haijai. Haijai checks on Jayo's well-being as the brawler comically cries about his jealousy. Jayo's demeanor darkens as he confronts one of the captured thugs, demanding to know his intended destination. He intensely questions if his destination was the Hermes laboratory. The thug denies any knowledge of a laboratory, revealing they were only supposed to deliver him to a local broker. As he's pushed into the police car, he explains the existence of a black market for heart mutants run by specialized brokers. Jayo's resolve hardens, and he decides he must meet these brokers. The chapter concludes with the gang member in custody, setting the stage for the next part of the story, hunting the broker. Haijai vehemently objects to Jayo's plan. The brawler agrees, warning him that the brokers are dangerously psychotic as Jayo calmly eats. She explains that her sister warned her they are absolute monsters who hunt heart mutants, with many brokers being mutants themselves. This information only strengthens Jayo's resolve, making him even more eager to meet them. Sitting together at an outdoor table, Haijai questions his obsession with finding a broker. Jayo pauses, touching the marks on his cheek as he begins to explain. He reveals his hope that the brokers might lead him to his friends. The brawler is taken aback, reminding Jayo that he previously claimed to have no friends. Jayo clarifies that he wasn't talking about friends in the outside world, but the ones he lived with back in the laboratory. He recalls his past, a daily life of painful experiments and torture as a skeletal child under armed guard. He recalls being dragged to an unknown location, a terrifying journey unlike any he had experienced. Thrown into a new room, he braced himself for whatever agonizing experiments were planned. But inside, he saw a chaotic scene of flying swords, filling him with dread. The guards shoved him forward, forcing him to enter the room despite his fear. He found himself in a battle royale, where other children were forced to fight each other with their powers. He could only stare in disbelief. Suddenly, a hand shot out. It intercepted a blade aimed directly for his head. A boy wielding a katana stood over him, having just saved his life. But in the next moment, Jayo was completely encased in a prison of ice. He recalls the faces of the other children, the furious katana wielder himself as a terrified skeleton, and the girl who had just trapped him in ice. The girl viciously kicks the katana boy, demanding to know why he would protect what she calls a monster. The boy points to Jayo's uniform, yelling back that he is a test subject just like all of them. Jayo is utterly bewildered by the revelation. The other children in the room slowly begin to approach him, their curiosity piqued by the living skeleton. Overwhelmed with shame, Jayo hides his face, begging them not to look at him. But they simply continue to stare, their expressions unreadable. One of the boys reassures him that he looks fine, explaining his appearance is just a result of being a mutant. He asks if the fight was scary and if this is Jayo's first time in the learning class, to which Jayo hesitantly agrees. One by one, the other children introduce themselves, with the boy who saved him, Shin Hayun, apologizing for his initial reaction. He recalls this as the first time he ever met his friends. Back in the present, Jayo explains that the learning class gathered test subjects from various labs to provide a basic education. Because they were all heart mutants, they formed a quick bond, even though they rarely saw each other. The brawler is overcome with emotion, weeping at the harshness of Jayo's past. Haijai then asks where his friends are now. Jayo explains that on the day they escaped the lab together, they were pursued and forced to scatter. Haijai puts the pieces together, realizing he's hunting the broker on the chance they might have captured his friends. Hearing his story, both Haijai and the brawler passionately pledge to help him in his search. The brawler then reveals he swiped one of the thug's phones, certain the broker's number would be inside. He proudly displays a text exchange, confirming the gang was scheduled to hand Jayo over to the broker at 7 p.m. that night. Jayo realizes with a start that the meeting is happening right now. At a desolate warehouse district, a voice curses their lateness. A group of thugs with knives charge a single hooded figure, ordered to kill him. The figure effortlessly dodges their attacks, noting they are using blades. He catches a knife with his bare hand, criticizing the attacker's technique. He declares that such a clumsy swing is useless as he begins his counterattack. The thugs are sent flying, hitting the ground with brutal force. One of the men shouts in panic that knives won't work on this opponent. He pulls out a handgun, intending to shoot him instead. But his hands tremble as the hooded figure stands before him, completely unfazed. A new figure named Lee Kiwon appears, explaining that his blade can cut through steel. His power is revealed, the heart of the sword. He moves with blinding speed, dispatching the remaining thugs in an instant. Surrounded by the carnage, he casually advises them to do better next time. His phone buzzes and he wonders who could be texting him. He sees a message from someone wanting to make an immediate sale. Reading the text from the brawler, he realizes he has a new customer. Meanwhile, Jayo arrives at a secluded alleyway. He confirms that this is the designated meeting spot. Checking the phone, he sees he has 30 minutes until the broker arrives. Jayo considers the nature of the broker, a trafficker who might also be a heart mutant. He recalls Haijai's worried question about whether he would actually go through with the meeting. She had reminded him that these were dangerous criminals, some of whom were mutants themselves. But Jayo saw this as a positive, a chance to find information about his missing friends. He had tried to reassure her, promising to watch from a distance and use his ability to escape if necessary. But now, alone in the desolate warehouse, he reflects on the promises he made to her. He steels his resolve, deciding that if the situation calls for it, he will simply capture the broker outright. He scans his surroundings for a potential weapon, settling on a heavy wrench for an ambush. He knows he can't rush in blindly, as the first rule of fighting a mutant is to identify their power. Suddenly, several sharp blades materialize just inches from his face. He cries out, throwing himself to the ground as the blades narrowly miss, striking a metal pillar behind him. Staring up at the weapons, he realizes they are just ordinary knives. A voice calls out from down the alley, noting that someone skulking around alone is unlikely to be a buyer. The hooded figure then questions if Jayo is a police officer. Jayo immediately understands that this must be the broker. He reasons that the broker's use of a knife implies he might be a regular human, not a mutant. This gives him a surge of confidence, believing a normal human will be far easier to capture. Deciding to press his advantage, Jayo explodes into motion. He closes the distance in a flash, his fist ready to strike. His plan is to overwhelm the broker before he has any time to react. But the hooded figure calmly introduces himself as Lee Ki-won, a name that stops Jayo in his tracks. He wonders how this man could possibly know his name. Before he can process it, the broker strikes with blinding speed, sending Jayo flying. He crashes hard onto the dirt floor. Dazed, he struggles to push himself back up. He realizes with horror that his strength is gone, his tendons severed by the attack. Deep cuts mark his shoulder, hand, and ankle, completely immobilizing him. He understands now that this man's swordsmanship is far beyond that of any normal human. A memory flashes through his mind, the day of the escape, a skeletal figure urging his friends to run. They fled through collapsing corridors, chaos erupting all around them. He remembers being pinned by falling debris, his skeletal face a mask of terror. But one of his friends stayed behind, smashing the rubble with a metal pipe to free him. Jae-oh could only look up in stunned silence. The boy, Lee Ki-won, promised to clear a path for their escape. Back in the present, Jae-oh demands to know how the broker knew his name, realizing with certainty that this is his long-lost friend. Ki-won is shocked that Jae-oh can still stand after having his tendons severed, and begins to suspect he might be a heart mutant. Jae-oh desperately calls out to him, identifying himself as the skeleton from their past. Ki-won questions the word skeleton. He points, the pieces clicking into place as he asks if this is the same Kim Jae-oh from the laboratory. Jae-oh smiles, overcome with relief to see that his friend is still alive. Ki-won points his katana, struggling to believe that this is really Kim Jae-oh. Jae-oh confirms his identity, explaining that he somehow managed to fully regenerate his body. Overcome with emotion, he rushes towards his friend, but Ki-won's hands transform into sharp blades. In a flash, Jae-oh is brutally struck and sent flying. He crashes to the ground, stunned by the sudden attack. Staring at the blades embedded in his arm, he questions why his friend attacked him. Ki-won calmly states that watching the wounds heal is proof enough that he is the real Kim Jae-oh. Jae-oh frantically points to his rapidly regenerating arm. But Ki-won lunges forward once more, his blade aimed to strike. The attack connects, forcing Jae-oh back as the assault continues without mercy. Jae-oh is completely bewildered by the relentless assault. He desperately demands to know why his friend is attacking him. Ki-won coldly tells him that he should already know the answer. He lunges forward once more, but Jae-oh is too slow to evade the strike completely. Blood splatters onto the dirt floor. Jae-oh braces himself as Ki-won closes the distance. He throws a punch, only for Ki-won's blade to impale his hand. Ki-won questions the foolishness of trying to punch a swordsman, but Jae-oh reveals he is fully aware of his friend's skill. This gives Ki-won pause. With a firm grip, Jae-oh seizes Ki-won's arm, stopping the blade. Ki-won looks down in confusion. Jae-oh uses the opening to throw his friend over his shoulder. He follows up with a devastating kick that shatters the ground. Sprawled on the floor, Ki-won remarks that Jae-oh is no longer the scrawny weakling he remembers. He then demands to know why Jae-oh ran away during their escape if he was always this strong. Jae-oh is completely bewildered by the accusation. Ki-won's memory returns to that fateful day in the laboratory. He recalls the moment they were cornered by armed guards who opened fire without hesitation. Trapped beneath rubble, he had desperately called out for Jae-oh to hand him a steel pipe. He remembers the moment they were surrounded, falling one by one. He accuses Jae-oh of abandoning them to save himself. In his memory, Jae-oh is seen fleeing the chaos alone. Jae-oh is left speechless by the accusation. He tries to explain that he had no choice, that staying would have doomed them all. Ki-won coldly calls him a coward. He places his hand on a steel beam, which begins to twist and contort. He reveals that he knows all about Jae-oh's regeneration ability. He points out that it takes a while for Jae-oh to recover after being blown to pieces. Ki-won then challenges him to try running away now, as countless blades emerge from the structure, trapping him. He crosses his arms, bracing for the inevitable impact. But Jae-oh vehemently denies the accusation. Elsewhere, a massive impact sends a figure flying through the air. A powerful projectile slams into a nearby structure. The shockwave reaches Hae-jae and the brawler, who watch the destruction in disbelief. Realizing it's coming from Jae-oh's direction, the brawler insists they investigate before calling for help. Back in the alley, Ki-won notes that Jae-oh's regeneration is far faster than he remembers. Jae-oh pushes himself up, declaring that there has been a misunderstanding and that he never ran away. He explains that he stayed behind to fight and only came here today on the chance he could rescue his friends. Ki-won listens, questioning if this entire conflict is truly just a misunderstanding. Arriving at the scene, the brawler stands over a downed thug, hearing the sounds of battle and questioning if a mutant is inside. He realizes there are people nearby. Ki-won acknowledges they've made too much of a scene and invites Jae-oh to his hideout to continue their conversation. He turns to leave, promising to explain everything that has happened since they were last together. Jae-oh watches him go, his expression filled with uncertainty. He reflects on how completely different his friend's personality has become. A memory flashes back to the lab, where a much brighter, more cheerful Ki-won offered him food. Staring at the broker's back, Jae-oh wonders what on earth could have happened to his friend. Elsewhere, the brawler is seen rushing through the streets at top speed. His dash is suddenly interrupted by the bizarre sight of sandwich ingredients flying through the air. Inside, a chef slices onions with impossible speed and precision. The brawler and Hae-jae arrive, completely bewildered by the scene. They discover Ki-won's hideout is a burger joint, where he uses his powers to work 3 stations at once. He expertly assembles a burger. Jae-oh can only wonder what could have possibly happened to his friend. He's greeted by a crowd of adoring fans and customers. Ki-won's secret hideout is revealed to be a bustling McDonald's. Later, Ki-won practices his customer service smile in the mirror. He slumps onto a bench, explaining that this is his place of work. Jae-oh is stunned that he has a job, prompting Ki-won to point out that Jae-oh is currently unemployed. Ki-won's attention shifts, asking about the 2 figures peering over the booth behind Jae-oh. Jae-oh introduces Hae-jae as a friend who helped him, while Taegu awkwardly presents himself as a chance acquaintance. Ki-won scoffs, remarking on how nice it must be for an unemployed person like Jae-oh to have made friends. Hae-jae quickly defends Jae-oh's difficult past as Taegu erupts in anger, threatening Ki-won for his insult. Jae-oh attempts to de-escalate the situation, reassuring them that Ki-won is a good person and telling them to stay close by. With the others at a distance, Ki-won returns to their conversation, asking Jae-oh to confirm his claim of not running away. Jae-oh begins his explanation, revealing that there was a bomb on the day of their escape. He specifies that it was planted right at their escape route. A memory shows the moment they were cornered, surrounded by armed guards and trapped by rubble. He recalls hearing the distinct ticking of a time bomb, a sound only he could perceive. He explains that due to the constant explosive tests, he remembers the sound of a fuse perfectly. He knew the lab intended to blow up the entire building, burying them all inside. He understood that while the strongest might survive the blast, the weaker children would surely perish. So he grabbed as many of the explosives as he could carry and simply ran. He carried them until the very last second. He explains that he woke up in the middle of a deep forest, thrown there by the blast. When he returned to the lab, everyone was gone, leading him to believe they had all successfully escaped. Ki-won recalls hearing a distant explosion on that day. He turns, asking if Jae-oh truly carried the bomb away himself, to which Jae-oh confirms he did, knowing he could survive. But Ki-won finds the story utterly unbelievable. He insists that while his story sounds crazy, it's the truth, explaining there was no time to warn anyone. To his shock, Ki-won simply says that he believes him. He then turns away, his hand a blur of motion. Fresh ingredients are sent flying through the air. Back in the kitchen, he uses his mutant ability to slice vegetables with impossible speed. He presents a perfectly assembled burger, remarking that he knew it would end this way. He places a full meal in front of Jae-oh, offering it as a gift for all the hardship he's endured. As Jae-oh gratefully eats, Ki-won is approached by 2 female customers asking for a picture. He obliges, posing for a selfie with one of the girls. He then sits back down, offering a sincere apology to his long-lost friend. Ki-won admits he almost attacked without listening, brushing off the earlier fight as Jae-oh looks on in confusion. Jae-oh, meanwhile, is completely engrossed in his meal, marveling at how delicious it is. Ki-won generously offers him more. He then proudly points to his name tag, revealing he is the store manager. Jae-oh is amazed that his friend has managed to build such a normal life, but Ki-won insists it was a piece of cake. He even offers Jae-oh a job, leaving him completely stunned. Ki-won sweetens the deal with a promise of pay above minimum wage, as Hae-jae and the brawler watch on with suspicion. But Jae-oh holds up a hand, stopping him. He points out that they met at the designated broker location, demanding to know why his friend was involved in such a business. His tone hardens as he questions how Ki-won could possibly work for the same people who experimented on them, calling him a scumbag. Jae-oh points accusingly, declaring that Ki-won's broker persona must be an act. Ki-won confirms that he was indeed pretending. He explains that in his spare time, he poses as a broker to lure out and capture the real kidnappers. His true goal is to wipe out the very people who hunt mutants. Jae-oh asks for confirmation, which Ki-won readily gives. A wave of relief washes over Jae-oh, who admits he was terrified his friend had truly turned to the dark side. He pieces it together, realizing Ki-won works a normal job while going undercover, a task Ki-won feels is necessary. Jae-oh gives an enthusiastic thumbs up, genuinely impressed. Ki-won looks away, slightly embarrassed by the praise. Jae-oh offers his help anytime, a proposition that seems to catch Ki-won by surprise. Jae-oh explains that his main reason for meeting was to find their friends, and he reiterates his offer of help. Ki-won enthusiastically accepts the proposition. He reveals he has a specific broker he needs to take down. Certain Jae-oh's power will make it simple. Realizing this could lead to their friends, Jae-oh immediately agrees to the plan. Ki-won extends his fist, telling Jae-oh he'll be a huge help. They seal their new pact with a fist bump. Ki-won explains he has to get back to his busy job, but promises to call later with the details. Later, Jae-oh thanks his friends for waiting as Hae-jae expresses her relief that his friend wasn't a shady character after all. But the brawler remains suspicious, questioning if Ki-won can truly be trusted after 3 years apart. Hae-jae agrees, admitting she was terrified when she first heard he was a human trafficker. Jae-oh agrees with her assessment. He recalls his friend's younger self, remarking that Ki-won hasn't changed at all, which is a good thing. But the brawler points out that Ki-won can't message him, as Jae-oh doesn't own a phone. Jae-oh proudly reveals a phone, which the brawler immediately recognizes as the one he stole from the gang. Elsewhere, a man flees in terror as his pursuers shout for him not to escape. They chase him down, intending to corner the man in an alley. He begs them to stop as a golden liquid begins to ooze from his hands. He unleashes a spray of oil, sending the thugs slipping and sliding as they recognize his mutant ability. The man looks back with a relieved smile, realizing he's still alive. His relief is cut short by a devastating punch to the face. A new figure in a pinstripe suit looms over him, questioning his attempt to escape. The man pleads for mercy, insisting his heart is worthless and can only produce oil. Another thug grabs him by the hair, mocking the pathetic display from a supposed heart mutant. The leader of the group remarks that not all mutants are powerful, comparing this one to a regular human. He smirks, calling it easy money, revealing the bounty on the mutant's head is a full billion. The captive's face contorts in pure terror, but a new voice cuts in, questioning if that's the full price. The thugs turn in shock, demanding to know the identity of the intruder. Before he can finish his question, a blade erupts from his chest. The hooded man reveals his bloodied blade, calmly stating that for this level of risk, the pay should be higher. Realizing their opponent is a mutant, the remaining thugs charge forward, intent on killing him. The hooded man calmly assesses the number of attackers, deciding to finish the fight quickly. In a blur of motion, he cuts through them with brutal efficiency. He moves with blinding speed, dispatching another thug in an instant. Panicked, one of the survivors pulls a handgun, ordering his men to open fire. The hooded man calmly considers the new threat. He grabs the weapon, reminding the thug that his gun is also made of metal. His power is revealed, the heart of the sword. The thug can only stare in utter disbelief. The barrel of his own gun twists into a cage of sharp blades, turning his weapon against him. The thug cries out in agony as his own weapon impales his hand. The hooded man's attack is swift and brutal, leaving his opponent reeling. Surrounded by the fallen, he casually advises them to be more mindful of their surroundings. The captive mutant looks up, profusely thanking his rescuer. He realizes with a smile that his savior is a heart mutant just like him. But as he expresses his relief, the hooded man coldly tells him to be quiet. He answers a call, reporting to his boss that he has successfully recovered the stolen mutant. The captive's hope turns to horror as he hears he's being sent directly to the laboratory. He desperately questions what his savior means. The hooded man calmly reveals the truth. He is the very broker who is selling him. On the other end of the line, a woman in a suit remarks that this is classic Lei Ki-won. She muses that he is on a completely different level, praising his efficiency and reliability. Ki-won then informs her that he has something else to report. He reveals that he has found Kim Jae-oh. The woman on the phone reacts in utter shock. Standing over the carnage, Ki-won asks if her promise of a reward for Jae-oh's capture is still valid. With a sinister smile, she confirms that it is. Ki-won looks up, promising to hand him over the very next day. The scene shifts to a kitchen, where hands are seen expertly slicing vegetables. It is Ki-won, now calmly cooking as he plots the best way to capture his old friend. He muses that luring Jae-oh out will be simple, as his old friend no longer suspects him. The only problem is that Jae-oh is far more powerful than he anticipated. He's a completely different person from the skeleton he once was, with a regeneration ability that now heals him almost instantly. Ki-won understands that ordinary methods won't be enough, and decides he must find a location with plenty of iron to use his power. He then presents a freshly cooked pot of curry. A young girl in a wheelchair cheers with delight, calling him the best. Ki-won smiles, explaining that he added extra potatoes just the way his sister Ki-yeon likes them. Ki-yeon eagerly declares that she loves it. He gently pats her head, promising to cook anything she wants. She then invites her brother to eat with her, but Ki-won tells his sister he can't eat with her, explaining he has somewhere important to be. Ki-yeon looks down, clearly disappointed to hear he's leaving again. He tells her to eat and save the leftovers, promising he will be back for them as he heads out the door. Elsewhere, a woman peels a tangerine, thinking about the hard time Jae-oh had earlier. She stirs a pan, considering how exhausted he must be after everything that happened. She decides that meat and fruit would be the best meal for him to recover his strength. Her eyes narrow with determination. She reveals her creation, braised short ribs topped with tangerines and strawberries. She consults her phone, confident in the dish, because an AI assistant assured her the ingredients go well together. She marvels at the AI's detailed recipe, admitting she never would have thought to combine fruit with braised ribs on her own. She proudly considers her newfound talent, wondering if she should take up cooking professionally. She texts her sister, who replies that she will be home late, only to be met with a sticker of a vomiting rabbit after hearing about the special dish. Annoyed by her sister's lack of appreciation, she decides to save some of the meal for her anyway. She then tells Jae-oh that her sister won't be back until morning, encouraging him to rest. Jae-oh reassures her that he is fine, explaining he's waiting for his friend to contact him. Hae-jae smiles, asking if he is truly that happy to have reunited with his friend. With a bright smile, Jae-oh confirms that he missed him a great deal. She notes that this is the first time she has ever seen him look so relaxed, and he quietly agrees. He reflects on their past, affirming that Ki-won is a precious friend. A memory returns of Ki-won approaching his skeletal form, asking why he was sitting all alone. He recalls his younger self, nervously explaining that he was just by himself. Ki-won grabs his sleeve, shouting in shock as he realizes Jae-oh's arm is missing. Jae-oh quickly pulls away, claiming it's just a sensitive wound from a recent experiment. But Ki-won dismisses his friend's worries, calling it a trivial matter. He insists on seeing the arm, grabbing the empty sleeve. Suddenly, a blade appears from within the sleeve, leaving Jae-oh stunned. He is left with a massive sword for a hand, crying out in shock. Ki-won, however, is ecstatic, marveling at how cool it looks. A young girl with dark hair appears, immediately accusing Ki-won of bullying Jae-oh again. Ki-won protests, insisting he only gave his friend a cool sword arm to make him look better. But to his younger self, the new appendage is incredible. The girl, however, is utterly baffled by the scene. Ki-won is just glad that Jae-oh understands the concept of cool. He then holds out his fist, leaving Jae-oh to wonder what he's doing. He explains it's a gesture of trust between friends, a sentiment the girl finds cringeworthy. But Jae-oh is once again amazed, seeing it as proof of their real friendship. Back in the present, Jae-oh explains that Ki-won was a truly cool friend whom he always followed. Hae-jae struggles to understand why anyone would enjoy having a blade for an arm. Still, she's relieved to see him so happy just from reuniting with his friend, and announces it's time to eat. She proudly presents the day's special menu, fresh sweet braised ribs. Jae-oh stares in utter shock, questioning what this bizarre creation could possibly be. Hae-jae proudly announces that it's her special braised ribs, leaving Jae-oh in awe. He marvels at the strange combination of strawberries and honey, a dish he has never seen before. He prepares to take his first bite. As he chews, Hae-jae anxiously asks for his opinion. To her surprise, Jae-oh is overcome with emotion, declaring the meal is unbelievably good. He praises every single ingredient, from the strawberries and meat to the oysters. He notices the dog Fritty watching him and considers sharing, but decides against it for the animal's safety. Hae-jae reassures the dog, promising to cook something special for it later. Jae-oh continues to eat, profusely thanking her for the best meal he has ever had. Hae-jae beams, promising to cook for him again sometime. Jae-oh gratefully stuffs his face, thanking her for the meal. Suddenly, the phone buzzes with an incoming call from Ki-won. He answers only to hear his friend desperately crying out for help. Ki-won explains that he was chasing men from the laboratory and is now in a dangerous situation. The mention of the laboratory sends a chill down both Jae-oh and Hae-jae's spines. As Ki-won begs for immediate assistance, Jae-oh instantly agrees to help. He provides the address to an abandoned factory before the call abruptly ends. Jae-oh rises, explaining to Hae-jae that his friend is in danger and he must go. He first apologizes for not being able to finish the meal she so carefully prepared. Hae-jae insists on going with him, but Jae-oh tells her to stay behind, promising he'll be right back. The scene shifts to a vast, desolate factory. Jae-oh arrives, cautiously peering inside and wondering if he's at the right location. He steps into the silent space, confirming this is the factory Ki-won mentioned but questioning the eerie quiet. But then he pauses. A sudden realization dawns on him as he observes the metallic surroundings. He sees iron pipes, iron plates, and even an iron floor, realizing the entire structure is made of metal. A dreadful thought crosses his mind. This is a space where Ki-won holds the ultimate advantage. He questions how his friend could have possibly been defeated in a place that so perfectly suits his power. Understanding the danger, he steels his resolve, determined to stay alert and avoid the same fate. He imagines Ki-won captured somewhere, trembling in fear. But then a hand touches the metal floor, and a single blade emerges from the surface. In an instant, the entire floor erupts in a storm of sharp steel. The blades tear through Jae-oh, impaling him from all sides. He grits his teeth in shock. The force of the attack sends him stumbling backward. He falls, completely bewildered by the sudden assault of swords. In the reflection of a blade, he sees the face of his attacker. Ki-won greets him from above, thanking him for coming. Jae-oh demands to know what is happening, reminding his friend that he was supposed to have been captured. Ki-won coldly confirms that the situation is exactly as it appears. Jae-oh's eyes widen in horrified realization. Ki-won declares that Jae-oh has been completely fooled as he lunges forward. Jae-oh grunts in pain, catching one of the blades with his bare hands. He hurls the weapons back at his former friend, but Ki-won effortlessly dodges and closes the distance. He plants his foot firmly and delivers a powerful kick to Jae-oh's side. Jae-oh spits blood from the impact. He is sent flying backward, crashing into a pile of wooden pallets. Ki-won looks down, his expression cold and distant. He admits that he was genuinely happy to see Jae-oh today. He explains that while seeing Jae-oh in a normal body felt strange, he could still recognize his old friend from the way he talked. As Jae-oh struggles on the ground, Ki-won continues, saying their conversation reminded him of the old days. Because of this, he confesses that he lied. He reveals the terrible truth: he really is a broker. His job is to capture heart mutants and hand them over to the laboratory. Jae-oh stares in horror as Ki-won declares his true purpose for being here is to send him back.